All right, so this is going to be the specific types of epithelial tissue. So we have our four primary types of tissues in the body: connective, epithelial, muscle, and nervous. And then this is going to be the specific types within the epithelial category. So before I even start on just squamous tissue in general, notice this says stratified, occurring in layers there. I wrote that down here as well. So squamous tissue can either be simple, where it's a single layer of tissue, such as in the alveoli of the lungs and lining the capillary beds. And that's because we need rapid exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide going in and out of tissues. So that can happen really quickly over a single layer, okay? Stratified squamous epithelial tissue, like we see over here on the right, okay, that's going to be in areas that are subjected to excessive wear and tear, like you see up here, okay? In general, though, squamous tissue is said to kind of look like you see over here on the left, like fried eggs, floor tiles kind of connected to each other, but the cells are always flat, right? And in stratified squamous epithelial tissue, the cells start out kind of rounded, and then they become more flat, okay, as they get older. Right, so this is, for example, the outer layer of your skin. So we'll be obviously talking about this more in the integumentary system. Okay, so again, we can have simple squamous epithelial tissue in a single layer and stratified. These are some of the locations that might be subjected to excessive wear and tear, like lining the heart, lining arteries and veins, lining your mouth and esophagus, the female vagina, okay, covering the tongue, right? And then forming our skin, our epidermis, which again, more to come on that and dealing with these layers in chapter 3 for the integumentary system. All right, while squamous epithelial tissue can be either simple or stratified, typically cuboidal epithelial tissue is going to be simple. Okay, it's rarely going to occur in layers. So these are said to be cube-shaped. They have a very rounded nucleus. And if you took each of these cells that you see along here or around this kidney tubule, if you kind of drew a box around one, you can see that essentially it would fill a little square, okay, like I just did there. These are going to comprise our glands. Our glandular tissue secrete substances. They're going to line ducts of the male urethra and sweat glands. They're found in all the locations that you can see there at the surface of our ovaries, and females, kidney tubules, the thyroid, and other glands. Again, rarely occurring in layers. This is a place that I need to stop and say that you need to label on your notes the basement membrane. Okay, which you can't see me doing that here. There we go. Okay, and then on the opposite side up here, let's label this as the apical surface. All right, and so that being said, the basement membrane is a layer of non-living matrix cells, okay, that attach cuboidal and columnar epithelial tissues and even squamous tissues to their underlying tissues. Okay, so right here along this line over here, that's basement membrane. This is the apical surface. Right, the apical surface is the free surface. It's on the opposite side of the cell from the basement membrane. All right, then our third type of epithelial tissue is columnar epithelial tissue. So notice that, so we're looking at cells kind of laying on their side here. They have a very rectangular shape. You can just draw a rectangle around that cell. The nuclei tend to be a little more oval in shape and tend to be at one end of the cell versus the other. This, again, is typically going to be simple columnar epithelial tissue. Rarely is it going to occur in layers. Many types of, or some types of columnar tissue are going to have cilia on them. So you can see some cilia here. Okay. This would be the basement membrane side over here. That's the apical surface side. Over here, basement membrane side, apical surface side. Okay. Free side that's attached to a totally different underlying tissue that we can see there. All right, so in the trachea, that's where you would have some cilia, female fallopian tubes. These are really common in the digestive tract. When they're in the digestive tract, they often have goblet cells associated with them that are filled with mucus. There's not any really fabulous goblet cells on here, but like this is one. Okay, so that's a goblet cell that stores and or secretes and stores mucus. Okay, and notice MUCUS. Okay, you have to know that spelling because we're going to talk about mucous membranes as well, and it's spelled differently. Okay, but these are really common in the digestive tract. Okay, and I'm shifting this out of order in your presentation to get at the goblet cells a little bit better. So this is a section shown over here on the right in a diagram where you can see some cartoon-like goblet cells. You can see cilia there, the basement membrane. Again, this side would be the apical surface. This is a specific type of columnar epithelial tissue that is pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar epithelium. And the reason it has that name is that notice how in the diagram you can see the nuclei in different positions. They're kind of fat and skinny. Each cell is at different locations. And so it gives this false appearance of being stratified, and pseudo means false. If you don't know that, that might be a good prefix to know. It's a good ACT prefix. So it gives the false impression of layers. Okay, so in an actual photomicrograph, here's a goblet cell here. All right, that's a goblet cell. And then you can see the cilia really well in this picture as well. So this is going to be where we're going to tend to see this in the trachea, for example, and then also in digestive organs. Okay, and again, there's the basement membrane. That's the apical surface. Let me hit this type of epithelial tissue real quickly as well. This specific type is called transitional epithelium, and it only occurs in the urinary bladder. So when your bladder is empty, okay, you've just used the restroom and urinated, then the cells are going to be more circular in shape, bulbous in shape. When your bladder is full, they're going to flatten out. Okay, so that's a good example of a flat cell in a full bladder. And what that might look like. And so this, they kind of are said to slide past each other as there's a constant change in volume in our urinary bladder as urine is being formed as a nitrogen waste product of metabolism. Okay, and so this whole layer that we see here, that's the transitional epithelial layer. This is going to be the other tissue that makes up the urinary bladder, which is going to be muscle tissue. All right, and so then glandular epithelial tissue, as you noticed on some of the previous slides, it's referred to specific glands. So if the epithelial tissue is associated with a gland, it's going to specifically synthesize and secrete substances either onto the surface of the body or into an organ or cavity or the bloodstream. So if it's an endocrine gland, which we've already talked about a little bit just with kind of the basic overview in chapter 1, these are glands that are ductless. Okay, they're going to secrete substances after they've made them. And if you don't know the word synthesize, that means to make. I guess I should probably point that out. Okay, that they're going to make those hormones and secrete them directly into the bloodstream. All right, so your ovaries, testes, pituitary gland, pineal gland, thyroid, thymus, and pancreas are examples that do that. Okay, so it's the hypothalamus, parathyroid. Okay, there's several others on there specifically that do that. Okay, secreting into the bloodstream. Right, and so then exocrine glands, these are glands that are going to synthesize and secrete products via a duct or a tube onto body surfaces or into an organ or a cavity. All right, so here we've got salivary glands, right, that the minute you even just smell food, you start to make saliva, but when you put starch in your mouth, something like, bread, potato chips, things like that, that we start to break down what's called amylase, amylase is the enzyme in our salivary glands that starts to break down starch, okay? Mammary glands that females are gonna produce milk from, right? Lacrimal glands, those are your tear glands, okay? And then your sebaceous glands and your sweat glands. So sweat glands are called sudoriferous glands. We'll see that in the next, I'm not going to even worry about spelling it right now just for time. But sweat glands are sudoriferous glands, and then your oil glands are your sebaceous glands. And both of those are going to be associated with your skin. Okay, so again here, just that these are going to either secrete substances into a tube or a duct or onto the body surface, right? So that being said, this section of the notes, okay, is separate from the other epithelial section only because I thought that I had saved a different version of this video. So sorry about the kind of hurried nature of this one, and the lighting is not great. Let me know if you have any questions.